Hi, I'm James Taylor, business creativity and innovation keynote speaker, and this is The Creative Life, a show dedicated to you, the creative. If you're looking for motivation, inspiration, and advice while at home, at work, or on your daily commute, then this show is for you. Each episode brings you a successful creative, whether that's an author, musician, entrepreneur, performer, designer, or thought leader. They'll share with you their journey, their successes, their failures, their creative process, and much, much more. You'll find show notes for this episode as well as free training on creativity over at jamestaylor.me. Enjoy this episode. Hi, it's James Taylor here. Today's episode was first aired as part of International Authors Summit. This inspiring virtual summit reveals the secrets of making, marketing, and monetizing a best-selling book. If you would like to access the full video version as well as in-depth sessions with over 40 best-selling authors, then I've got a very special offer for you. Just go to internationalauthorssummit.com where you'll be able to register for a free pass for the summit. Yeah, that's right. Over 40 New York Times and Amazon best-selling authors, book editors, agents, and publishers sharing their insights, strategies, and tactics on how to write and market your first or next bestseller. So just go to internationalauthorssummit.com, but not before you listen to today's episode. Hey there, it's James Taylor, and I'm delighted today to have with me Joseph Alexander. Joseph Alexander is an author, publisher, and guitarist, although not necessarily in that order. As a prolific author, he has written over 40 guitar tuitional books, which have sold in excess of 400,000 copies worldwide. Joseph also runs a publishing services company at self-publish.co.uk and 2 independent book publishing imprints. He's one of the few 7-figure indie non-fiction authors living in the UK today, and it's my great pleasure to have him with us. So welcome, Joseph.
Hey, how are you doing?
Very well. So tell everyone what's going on in your world just now.
Well, we're plugging away. We're pushing forward. We're sort of trying to release at least one book every 2 weeks. It's sort of all hands on deck, and it's just dividing my time between editing, publishing, marketing, all that kind of stuff. So it's busy, but it's good busy. Everything's fun. We're working with loads of great musicians and sports specialists as well. So I couldn't ask for anything more in my life at the moment. Works great.
Now, we worked together on a project. It was with a client of mine, jazz guitarist Martin Taylor. And you published that book and worked with Martin on that book, and it was a great experience. I know Martin, as the main author and the person who kind of brand was up there, really enjoyed that whole process of being able to work with someone who understood, what he was teaching, but at the same time could take away all of those things which neither he nor I have any skill set in. So, is this becoming a bigger part of what you're doing now? Is not just publishing your own works, but actually working with lots of other authors?
Oh yeah, absolutely. With Martin, this is what we produced at the end of it, and it was a great project. Working with Martin was loads of fun. One of my musical heroes growing up as well, so it was incredible for me, but on a personal level, to be working with him. I started writing really as a result of teaching. I was writing down notes to my students. These sort of gradually piled up, turned into books, and somebody said I could sort of self-publish them on Amazon. And eventually, I got more and more books, ran out of things to write about them and stuff. But well, how can I expand this? How can I do more? So what I started doing was looking for guitarists around me, friends and colleagues that were teaching things that I couldn't. I'm the world's worst death metal guitarist, but I know a guy who's great. So I was like, well, I reached out to him. Do you want to write this book? At that time, I had my kind of branding built up, and that was really the model that we started working with great musicians to build really cool tuition products, hopefully really good value. We cram in as much as we can, but by partnering up with other people, it's just sort of become this publishing company. And now we've got over 100 books. We've got books for guitar, bass, piano, drums. And, we get to work with people like Martin Taylor. There's a few people I can't quite mention, but, there's possibly something with Tommy Emmanuel in the works. I'm sort of just hesitating because I don't want to say a few names, but there's definitely
you have a good pipeline, as I say. You've got a good pipeline of things coming out.
It's very big name people. So it's just kind of grown organically by reaching out and trying to do it in a really, in a way with lots of integrity. That publishing's a terrible business for writers generally. Traditional publishing, royalties are tiny, you don't get paid very often, there's a huge lead time. And music can be the same way, if you're recording albums and trying to sell songs. Well, I'm a musician and I'm a writer, and I recognize those difficulties in both of those industries. So, we pay at least double a traditional royalty, and because we've done that, we've been able to attract great people to us. So yeah, mostly day to day now. I'm still writing the odd book, but it's probably 90% publishing other people.
Now, in this world, for people that don't understand the kind of music instructional world, probably about, there was a big move. Obviously, people like Mel Bay kind of really helped create, especially in the guitar world in the 40s and 50s. Playing a Day, Bert Weedon was a guy in the UK. And then around probably the 80s, we started moving towards video cassettes. I remember Hot Licks and Arlen Roth and some of these really grainy. Being a drummer, I remember buying the drum ones. And so a lot of people started moving towards tapes, VHS, for example. And then we moved into DVD, so people were kind of buying that type of content. And then they were moving into, really in the past, I would say 10 years, into online courses. I've been involved in a lot of creating online courses. So I find it kind of interesting that you have gone on the book side where, I know a lot of guitarists and a lot of people that are in the music space, they've gone either creating their own online courses or own membership sites, but you decided to take a slightly different route. Why was that?
Well, I think it just played to my strengths. And when I started out, like I said, I was teaching guitar, probably 20, 25 hours a week, and I was writing down what I was giving my students. So it kind of grew out of that. There wasn't some sort of master plan as right, I'm going to take over the world with guitar books. It was really just how it evolved. Now, we are starting to build that reputation now, and if you go on the best-selling guitar books on Amazon.com, we've probably, I think at the moment we've got about 7 out of the top 10, and probably 20 or 30 out of the top 50. It's going really well. Now, for us, obviously video content and working with such great guitarists, video content is definitely something that's in the pipeline, but also we are thinking about moving into a subscription based website as well, where people can pay a set, Netflix model where they can pay a set fee. Saying that, what we have noticed is that Amazon's marketing is so powerful that we've done a few things which I know we'll talk about later in terms of mailing lists and building that. But if we can promote a book well enough to Amazon, it stays there. And if we can own those keywords, the SEO for certain book titles, that's going to show up time and time and time again when people are searching for products. And we found that our demographic tends to be people in the age range sort of 30 up, who don't necessarily, there's so much free content out there. Some of it's incredible, some of it's, on a sliding scale downwards. But not people want something with some kind of authority. And I think buying a book has that. You're investing in it. We hopefully do a good job in writing them. So it's kind of like this tangible thing. This is my workbook. I can have it on my music stand, and I can start here and I can progress. And I know that when I finish this book, I'm going to be in a better place in terms of my guitar skills. And I think there's always going to be a demographic where people are just looking for something for free, or they specifically want video. But we sell about 300 books a day at the moment, and that's pretty huge in terms of the publishing industry as a whole. Certainly the indie publishing industry. So that audience is there. There are people who want books and people who thrive on that kind of like stimulus, I guess. Some people want a book, some people want video. We're catering for the book side.
And let's talk about, you mentioned the Amazon piece. So when you started thinking about publishing and distributing your books, you were going the independently published route. Did you go with, I know there's, was it CreateSpace initially at that point, and you kind of, did you release both printed and the Kindle and digital versions, or how did you start things with them?
Do you know what? It was funny. I think I kind of found it backwards, that I ended up with CreateSpace first, and then didn't figure out I could do an ebook until later, which is, you know, pretty the wrong way around, really. It's worth saying CreateSpace has actually closed its doors this week. We've had the email, and we've moved all of our books over to KDP. So KDP is like now your one-stop shop for print and ebooks. How did it start? Yeah, it was really. I submitted my book. My first book was called Fundamental Changes in Jazz Guitar, and I wanted like a really straightforward do this kind of thing to teach guitarists to play, you know, 2-5-1 chord progression. It's a common progression in jazz, and I did it, and I recorded all the audio examples, and the audio examples fill 3 DVDs, and I sent it off to a publishing company that shall remain nameless in London, and they were like, "This is great, we really love it, but that is not financially viable. We can't put this out. You know, it's hard enough to sell guitar books as it was." I'm like, well, yeah. And I suppose the assumption I've made was, well, this stuff needs to be on DVD because that's just the way it's done. I'm like, hang on a sec. Well, this is the 21st century. Why don't we just have a website where people can download this for free? And then the website appeared, and you know, everything was there. So there's a link in the book to the website. You download your audio, and you've got everything. It's really clean. Now that ties in with my kind of sort of lust for an easy life, because if I wanted to distribute my stuff more traditionally, then you've got to obviously pay for printing, warehousing, distribution, and if you want more of a traditional way, you're looking at returns, and you're looking at like pulping things if they're not selling, and you know, that sort of sale or return thing that bookshops have, and quite rightly, I'm not necessarily knocking that. But for a modern indie publisher, you're looking that, well, I can upload that PDF, and you know, we use Word documents still to go to ebook. That we can upload that to Amazon, and Amazon takes a fairly small chunk out of that to have it on the site. You know, so you've got the display. It will print it on demand, so there is now no warehousing, no risk of returns, no initial outlay of, oh my god, I've got to print 2,000 copies, and then it prints one every time somebody clicks buy. Now that's really simple, it's really clean. Like, I've got a couple of books in the house, but that sort of image of like vanity publishing, you know, you've got all these boxes in the garage of things that you can't get rid of, that just doesn't exist anymore. And the indie thing, I mean, if you go trad, and that is right for people, I'm not necessarily just knocking trad, you know, there's good reasons to go trad for various people. But even if you go trad now, and the traditional publishers still expect you to do your own marketing. They're not necessarily going to touch you unless you've got your own following on, you know, on Instagram or Facebook or whatever that happens to be. So the actual advantages that people perceive of going traditional aren't necessarily there. You sort of think, right, you sent off your manuscript and that's it. And it's not. Like, there might be a year lead time on that book getting out, and then all the things that they're supposed to do in terms of advertising and placement and things like that don't necessarily nearly happen. Don't always happen. You know, and be a bit careful about that, of course, if you're, you know, J.K. Rowling, they'll put a huge amount of money behind you. But if they're taking a chance on you, they're less likely to do that. And no one's going to be more invested in your book than you are. So you need to approach it, you know, like what you think a publisher should be. You need to have a budget for a great front cover. You need to have a budget for advertising, marketing, all this kind of stuff, a website, and come across as very professional. Because at the end of the day, most books are now sold on Amazon. And no one, if the quality's good, no one cares or even knows if you're an indie publisher or you're Penguin. You know, they don't care. They just want the book. And if the book appeals to them, they'll buy it. So really, I guess what I'm saying is that if you want your book out, and if you believe in it, you can do that as an indie publisher, and you can you can make sales.
So I guess that's the difference between, you know, what we used to think of as self-published and independently published. So self-published where you basically do everything yourself, including the cover design and the whole 9 yards, where independently published, you have a team of people perhaps around you, people are helping with cover design and maybe editing, you know, proofing, maybe some people around marketing. You're almost like building a little team, virtual or otherwise, around you.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think it's just a semantics thing, really, that self-published gets a bit of a bad press, whereas if you use a sort of vernacular indie published, it just becomes a little bit more of a force. So I guess that's why people who do what I do kind of use that. But yeah, I mean, when you talk about having a little team around you, yeah, I do, because I actually run a full-time publishing company now. However, if you want to call it self-published, or you're small and you're going to independently publish your book, then there are probably things that you're not going to be good at. And if you're good at them, great, do them. But if you're not, you're going to need to spend money. And I think the biggest one of that, biggest issue there is front cover design. You know, it's really important. You know, you see, if it's got a bad cover, it's not going to sell. It's like 7 million books on Amazon or something. You're a needle in a haystack that people don't even know they're looking for. You know, so you need to have like a great front cover, and it doesn't have to cost hundreds and hundreds of pounds. There's guys out there on Fiverr and Upwork, or wherever. And of course, editing. You know, and editing is more expensive, and but again, like if you've got faith in your story or your non-fiction book, you have to, even as a self-published author who's written their novel, you have to believe in it enough to invest in it. And I think if you're how can I say that? If you're not necessarily willing to do that, then either maybe you shouldn't release it, or maybe traditional publishing is the way to go if you can get them to spend money on all that stuff for you.
Now, you mentioned this idea when someone's reading your books, you have a call to action within the books, driving them onto a website so they can maybe watch videos as well. But then obviously I'm imagining you're capturing emails as part of that as well. So you're starting to build your email list around that. I'd be interested to know, how have you done it? Did you find that, was that very easy to kind of get into, to kind of building that email list, and then to be, communicating with that list, building a relationship with your list?
Yeah, I think so. It's easier for me, and I appreciate that, with the non-fiction and the specific kind of work that we do, because we're writing music books, and I was talking about the DVDs before. Music, like you've got to hear it, and that's why every guitar book or drum book's always like traditionally come with a CD or a DVD. So we record all the audio examples in the book. You can go to our website and you can download the audio examples in your book. We simply take the email at that point, and that's how we build our list. The difficulty there is if you are a novelist, a fiction author, you've got to think, well, what's tangible? What can I give away that is meaningful? And also, people will be willing to exchange their email address for. And there's a few ways of doing that. And, Mark Dawson's a huge, advocate of this, that people give away maybe a novella or a prequel. So you open up your the novel, you scroll past the kind of index page, and then there's if you want the prequel to this book, go here and you can either download it. It does work, and if you get some traction on Amazon via using adverts or whatever, you will start to build up a mailing list. It's just something to be careful with, because you're kind of building a mailing list of people who want something for free. And while I know the audio for my books are free, it is something that's tangible to the book. It's not just like a free giveaway to get an email address. So there is a balance to be had there, but that's pretty much the way most.
Yeah, so like the book and the MP3, they're symbiotic. They almost kind of live together. They're just in different mediums. And I'm thinking probably for a lot of our viewers, listeners to this, most of them are really either non-fiction authors or aspiring to be non-fiction, and a lot of them are maybe business, or they're writing those types of books. So those free call to actions could be to a workbook or a checklist or a or a calculator, online calculator for something, for example. So you've got lots of ways of doing it, but it's providing that additional value and kind of getting people off the page as well.
It's got to be meaningful, like you say, online calculators and workbooks and things like that are great. The danger is people go, oh, well, I'll just include a bonus chapter and that can be downloaded for free. It's like, well, you're kind of actually just denying people value in your book if you do that. It's like, well, why wouldn't you include the chapter in the book that people paid for? But like you say, if it's something that's tangible and useful and will really help, then go nuts.
So you started building this business. I'm wondering, for maybe some of our attendees just now, they've got a couple of books that maybe self-published a few books, and they maybe have the authority around their domain. Let's say if someone they're really well known in terms of in finance and writing books around finance, but it's just them, and maybe they get to the stage now they actually say, you know what, I think I'm not the only voice on this. Maybe I want to create a independent publishing company, publishing books all around this topic and bringing in other authors who have maybe a different take, or maybe they have a niche within a different area of finance. What advice would you give to someone that's thinking about making that next transition into not just self-publishing themselves, but actually working with other authors?
Well, that's a big question. I think the first thing you have to genuinely have that authority, and not just think you do. I after I'd sort of approached a few authors to publish their books, when I ran out of things to write about, I started getting approached by people who were asking me to represent them because of the brand that I was building in Fundamental Changes. And I think that's part of it, that it's the kind of thing that you're asked, I suppose. I think there's nothing wrong with reaching out to people, of course there's not, but there's a danger where you see quite a lot of companies now starting up with it in mind that they're going to charge their authors fees for things. And there are some awful ones out there, and I do a lot of consultation work for Readsy, and I speak to people and they're sort of hovering over the button to buy literally a $10,000 package, where some company will basically publish their book for them and give them a small royalty for it. And there's a lot of danger in the industry, and it's probably easy for someone to go down that route. What we do is we offer a fair royalty split, because it just helps us to be a little bit more risk averse. That if the book doesn't sell, we'll do everything we can to make it sell. But if it doesn't, it's not like we're losing loads of money on it. It's just, okay, it's not sold, bummer. We'll do what we can, but what's the next book? So what advice would I give if you're going to do that? I think you've got to have that authority, but you've also got to get the fundamentals right. Like, are your covers recognized as a brand? If you look at our covers, all right, they might be a little bit boring, but that this book is a Fundamental Changes book, and that this book's a Fundamental Changes book, because that's our branding. And if you're going to go into, business or management books or whatever like that, having these things set up so you can build that brand and be inclusive with it. The reason I say that is because Amazon's algorithms are incredibly powerful, and the people who bought this also bought algorithm is hugely important. So when you scroll kind of down past the product that you're reading, if people can see 10 books by the same company, or with the same editor, or however Amazon show those things up, you suddenly developed a brand and a presence on Amazon without really having to do very much other than, get your covers right and project that you're a brand. So there's that.
So you can almost see, you can see those little thumbnails, also recommend, yeah, and you can see that they have a consistency across them as you're looking across the page. Even like even on a small screen, it needs to be able to pass that test on a small screen as well.
Absolutely, totally. And you can see that, and we're very lucky. Like, you click on one of our books, or actually quite nicely for us, on another guitar or a drum book, like, you'll see our books at the bottom. So there's like, oh, well, I'm looking at this one, which kind of looks a bit self-published and, like Heath Robinson. And then, but at the bottom, there's all these books that are like branded, and they've got like, hundreds of reviews on. And then under that, you've got all the sponsored products where we own that space as well. It's like, suddenly, oh, right, well, who are these guys? And it's, it's like seeing like a Penguin book, the Penguin Classics, or, it when you see a For Dummies book, because they've done a really good job of their branding. So you click one For Dummies book and they're everywhere, and you go, all right, these guys are the real deal. They've got loads of books, they look professional, and they're all over Amazon. And Amazon's great at cross-promoting. So that's, it's been a coincidental part of our model, but it has been very, very successful for us.
And what advice, you mentioned reviews, they're getting reviews. What advice do you have? Because obviously the algorithm is so powerful. It's looking for those reviews to qualify something. What advice would you give to either authors who are self-publishing, or even maybe other publishers, independent publishers, in terms of trying to get those reviews up?
Yeah, like, you just got to be cheeky, man. Like, build your mailing list and ask for them. That's it. Like, we have an automated email that goes out, so listen, like, how's your book going? Are you enjoying it? If you've got any problems, please, like, email me directly, and that will come through to me. But if you like it, please, could you just spend 2 minutes to write a review on Amazon? But the review thing, it's a mixed bag. You need to have verified reviews. You need to, and Amazon's really doubling down on this stuff. Like, our reviews are genuine, but occasionally I'll notice, that book's, it's lost about 3 reviews as their algorithms kicked in and go, well, that looks a bit similar to that one, or that person's within 6 degrees of separation of you, or whatever, and they're just like, oh, that, we don't think that's a real review. Because fake reviews are a huge problem on Amazon. It misleads the customer. It's bad for everyone, and quite rightly they are cracking down on it. So your reviews have to be genuine, and kind of like, if you get your wife, your girlfriend, or your brother, or whatever in the same house, Amazon will see that, and they'll see that you're connected, and there's a good chance of that review being removed. So it all, actually, for us, like, we've got 50-something thousand people on our mailing list now, all of them genuine customers. Pretty much everyone there has bought something from us. And so we just ask them, but a huge amount of this this model is about getting email addresses in a meaningful way.
So as you've been going through your journey now as an author and as a publisher, was there a key aha moment, a light bulb moment where you said, oh, okay, this is the direction I want to be going with this business, or you just made an important distinction? Perhaps it was around the marketing or for what you were doing.
In terms of, like, did I know this is for me, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, or this is going to be the business, or was it like a particular technique?
Yeah, really more when the business was up and going, and you were starting to, you were getting those books out. Maybe just a light bulb kind of came to you, say, okay, this is the direction I want to be going with this company. Because you're now building a company. It's not just about you as the individual.
I think it was like sort of the growing success that we had. I mean, I sort of just like haphazardly threw my first book up on Amazon, actually 6 years ago, August. And I was working as teaching guitar, and it was ticking over. It was selling a few copies. But I was being a guitarist, I didn't really have a pension or anything like that, and I could just see it. I was like, oh, that'd be quite nice. Yeah, that's sort of money kind of that I can put aside. And then I wrote another one, and actually, I could see them promoting each other on Amazon, and another. And I think something like 14 books in my first year.
Wow, 14 books.
I was like, right, actually, it was, without sort of being, big-headed about it. It's like, well, that was kind of the point where I actually didn't need to work anymore, and we moved to Thailand. And I spent like a year in Thailand just like writing books, which was great. I sat by the pool with a laptop. So it was actually realizing that I suppose, yeah, that'd probably be the big takeaway, is that more books don't just mean more sales in a linear fashion. It's actually exponential because of that cross promotion thing, and realizing that the secret, or that the key to that success was writing a lot of books, which I did. And we continually add books now. And like I say, I think, I've got people working for me now. I've got, a full-time person doing marketing, got subcontract out to another company that, does our book covers and editing and that kind of thing. And I've done that because I realize actually the rate of release of books is very important. And I couldn't physically hit a wall about last November. And I was like, well, I'd done sort of 6 books that I wanted to get out before Christmas, and it was middle of November and I couldn't do anymore. It's like, right, okay, I need people to help me now. And I made that investment because it's it's starting to level off now a little bit, I guess, but it is an exponential increase in sales of everything. Well, there's a tick up, I should say, in everything whenever you release a new book. And when people have bought one of your books before, Amazon will send them an email recommending your latest release. So, like if I'm not listed as an author on Amazon, I'm always listed as an editor, which is true, but it means that algorithm kicks in. Let's say a Joseph Alexander book, and then that will get sent out to people who bought another one of my books. So it's just a bit of a self-prophecy.
I know Brian Tracy, the author, he kind of does this. He was talking to a friend of mine recently, and he said he publishes a book every 3 months. And part of it is, and actually he's traditionally published as well, although I think that's maybe changing now. But he's benefiting from that same thing. Obviously he has some very big books and some hit books, but he's also just publishing ones all the time, just little ones like time management or just things. So there's this constant drip, drip, drip. And he's, partly he also said that some of the publishers that he's worked with in the past, they're only really focused on that particular quarter. They're very quarter focused. So he said if you've got a book out every quarter, it keeps you top of mind with him. That was his other thinking.
Yeah, I think that's really valid, and it depends a lot. If you're a novelist and you're writing 120,000 words, you're not going to be able to do that. However, there's a huge market, say in romance or like vampire fiction or erotic fiction or whatever it happens to be, that people are like voracious. They read and they read and they read, and especially with things like Kindle Unlimited, that I don't think it will approach a saturation point, because you can write a 30,000-40,000 word book, have it out there, and it's acting as a business card for you, because people are very sort of hungry for books and that. With music, we're lucky we can write in any genre for any ability, any level kind of thing, and focus on technique or theory or chords or soloing or whatever it happens to be. So we've got such a huge palette of titles that we can write, and then multiply that by the most popular instruments.
And also
then, starting to use ghostwriters as well now. So like I've got people writing books in the background and sort of reinvesting the royalties into things like that, which is more sort of piano and that kind of thing, But
interesting, because the topic that you cover and the types of books that you publish, they're very evergreen, perennial seller type books. Where even
we're very lucky.
Yeah, even in your area, I mean, there's obviously some publishers that go very much like the Taylor Swift songbook, let's say, for example, and so artists start to fall out of being popular after a while, but because you focus on, as you say, fundamental changes, these will hopefully be evergreen books. And I know some non-fiction business authors I've spoken with sometimes struggle with that part, because they're wanting to write a book and they might want to use examples of certain companies, but they're worried if it's a current like hot tech company, that company is going to be gone in 12 months time, or it's going to be acquired, and it doesn't feel quite as relevant then.
I completely agree, and it must be tough if you're writing about like coding or programming or marketing or Instagram or something that just changes so quickly. Or even like, it's funny because you see books on like Amazon marketing that have been written like 3 years ago, and they're just so out of date, and like you might be able to glean something, but it's you know, it's a double-edged sword really, because if your niche is changing, you can write a new book on it, you know, and you can actually, you know, not even do second editions. You can write a whole new title, and you've got this sort of progression, and you're building product awareness, and you're building authority with that. So, but yeah, we're super lucky because we are in an evergreen field. We have to deal with a bit more competition from other people kind of doing it now. But like, I think it's the second book I wrote. It's probably still my biggest selling book. You know, that's in terms of income, that would probably be the biggest one that I have.
So I have to ask, in order to be able to publish 14 books in 1 year, what does your writing ritual look like? Are you just like writing 24/7? You mentioned now, you know, things are changing a little bit, but in those early days, what was your writing schedule?
I would be up really early. Like my day would be sort of probably getting up about 5:30, probably doing about 2 or 3 hours, but also recognizing that I know that if I do more than a couple of hours, the quality of my work diminished. So I would wake up, I probably wouldn't go downstairs because then the dogs want to go out and blah, blah, blah. Let's go straight into the office, turn on the computer and write. And I would start by checking over, brief scan really over what I wrote yesterday, just to get myself up to speed with where I'm picking up from. That would actually allow me to do a little bit of an edit there if I wasn't quite happy with anything, but it just got me into the frame of mind. And to not burn out, you know, I could probably do about 7 pages a day, because it's not, if I was just writing, like I've just written a book, Self-Published Millionaire, which will be out in a couple of months, hopefully. But that I wrote, I think, 60,000 words in about 3 weeks or something, 2 weeks. It was a lot of work. But with the guitar books, I'm writing musical examples and figuring out how to play things and figuring out how to teach things in text. So it was quite a slow process, and that's quite demanding. And I had to notate everything, you know, in music software. So that was why that was more time consuming. Like my books are quite short compared to what people would consider for a normal word count. Probably I tried to keep them less than 20,000 words, but would have 100, 150 notated examples, which is the point. You know, it's a guitar book or a drum book or whatever.
Yeah, the guitarists don't want screeds of text usually. They want the examples, they want the tab or the notation.
Yeah, which is, you know, it's better, you know, picture paint some 1,000 words and all that sort of thing. So that would be it. I'd be up really early and I would get my stuff done before like my girlfriend got up, or, you know, before I had to actually go and do anything. And that just meant I had a really quiet house, because I'm my sort of biggest fault is that I'm really easily not distracted, as in like I'll go off in another direction, but I can't focus easily with a lot of noise. I can't really listen to music while I work. I do need it to be quite quiet, and that's just my personal stuff. And so if I wanted to do it, I got up early. Some days I'd work all day, sometimes I'd work late at night, but there would be always a quiet time, and just the understanding with my girlfriend Amanda, who's extremely supportive, that like if my office door is closed for those couple of hours, just don't come in. You know, let me have my time, and I'll be sort of all yours after that. But I'm saying that because it's a common thing that I hear with writers. It's like, well, you know, I've got a family, I've got this, and of course that does complicate things. But you need to be pretty adamant that you're going to carve out that time that you need, and you know, treat it as a job, you know, and
a sacred time. And what about a book? If you were to recommend one book to our attendees, it could be a book on the craft of writing, or perhaps on marketing your books. What would that book be?
I forget the name of it. Stephen King's book is really good on the craft of writing. It's very much about, you know, you don't use any more words than you need to. I will shout out to my friend Joanna Penn. Anything that she's written is pretty much gold. I know you've done an interview with her recently, right, but her stuff's fantastic. It really is on every aspect of marketing. And if you watch the space in about 2 months, my book hopefully will be great. That is basically everything I do. It's almost like a complete expose of all the processes that we put in place. And I've written that with Tim, who's the guy who runs a subcontracting company that I use, and he's had 20 years experience in the traditional publishing industry as well. So it's got my take as an indie author, what I've done and how I've built things, but he's also putting his slant on it. Like, well, if you actually do want to go trad, what does that, the agent want to see? How can you best present your work? How can you get your covers done? How can you get that foot in that door, which is incredibly competitive? So it's going to be quite all encompassing. I've taken a non-fiction look at it. He's taken a sort of fiction look at it, and we're hoping that'll be out in a couple of months.
Excellent. So I know we're going to have some links here as well, so people can, because depending on when someone's watching this book may be out at this point as well. What about you mentioned you don't like having music or anything playing while you're writing as well? Has that always been pretty much the case? You just don't like having anything going, which is funny for a musician. No music while I write.
It's a nightmare. It really is. Like, I just can't focus because I could probably have some Mozart on in the background.
Yeah. But
like the stuff I like to listen to, like Tower of Power or something like that, I just get so, like, my ears just go like that, and what's in front of me, and I'm it's funny. It's really weird, but I'm like trying to train myself to listen to.
No, the only thing I've been able to manage, there's an app which plays coffee shop music, coffee shop background noise. And I've tried that in the past, and I can just about deal with that. That's quite nice because it's quite nice to have a little bit of a thing if you're just working from home. But apart from that, no music from me either.
I've bought some Neurophone headphones that are amazing. They're really good, like noise cancelling and things. That helps a little bit. But yeah, it's funny. I'm actually trying to actively train myself because the amount of hours of cool music that I could have experienced, found out about in all the thousands of hours that I've been writing. I kind of need my quiet, and it's just a bit of a bummer.
What about tools? Is there any tools or apps you find very useful when you're writing and publishing?
You know what, I'm quite adamant about this, and I was sort of somebody asked me this. I was talking for Amazon at the London Book Fair, and I was just trying to hold my tongue. I think we're a bit different here as well, because I can't be doing with like productivity apps or things like that. Like, I have a pen and paper on my desk, and if I want, actually I kind of use notes now on my Mac because it's everywhere then. But if I've got something to do, I write it down and then I do it. So there's nothing amazing there. I write everything in Word. Word works really well when converting into Kindle Previewer software that you can get from Amazon. That's free. I used to use Grammarly, but actually I found now that I've just got an editor on staff, subcontracted, that it's easier just to write it, give it to them. But yeah, really keep it simple. If you're just starting out, there is absolutely nothing wrong with typesetting your book in Word, exporting a print resolution PDF from that within Word. If you've got Adobe, you can go that way with that too. And then that's the internals for your book. We use Photoshop. We've got a really good Photoshop, as you can probably tell from the book covers I showed you before, that we use. And now we're a little bit further down the line, and I know the subcontractors that we use, they use InDesign to set up the paperback version of the book. Really, I'm like having a little look, and we've got a few. I'm looking at my toolbar.
And what about, obviously you're on Amazon all the time, so you're using KDP.
Yeah, in terms of websites, everything now is KDP, because sort of sadly, I like CreateSpace, but that sort of closed its doors, which makes sense. Amazon's just consolidating everything into KDP. Book reports, which you've probably heard a million people recommend, it is astonishingly good, because Amazon's stats and sales reports are a little bit cumbersome, whereas Book Report is a little plugin that you can get for your browser, and it just connects to Amazon. It tells you what's selling, how much it's selling. It'll give you trends over time. Highly recommend Book Report. We use for HTML product descriptions, which are really important, but probably don't have time to get into that. We use, it's a paid for site, and there's probably something similar for free. That's betterbooktools.com, I think. and that will turn your product description into a nice, friendly Amazon product page description. I'm sure there are free versions of that.
Your bullet points and things like that.
Yeah, because Amazon accepts a very limited range of HTML. They really cut down on that. People used to put a pixel on their site, on their pages, and measure, bitly and all that kind of thing, so they could see what was getting clicked and do lots of testing, which was quite cool. But Amazon, sort of understandably cut down on that. So they use a very limited range of HTML now. So you can do your bold and you can do your headings and italics, but that's about it.
Well, we'll put all these links here as well. And a final question for you. I want you to imagine you woke up tomorrow morning and you have to start from scratch. So you have all the skills that you've acquired, all the knowledge, but no one knows you. You have no books out. You know no one. I'm going to let you choose where you can either be on a beach in Thailand somewhere. I'm going to let you choose wherever you want to be. But how would you restart? What would you do?
Staying in my niche, staying with like non-fiction tuition books. I'd get writing. I would be writing quickly. I would be making sure that the number one thing that I was doing was building my mailing list. Because when you've got a mailing list of 50,000 people, you can send a lot of traffic to your book very quickly, which propels it up the rankings, and then you can start to own those keywords. We've not really talked about mail. We use loads of marketing and automation and all this kind of stuff and we use ActiveCampaign for that. ActiveCampaign. I'm not sure if I'd recommend ActiveCampaign to anyone starting out. It's a bit of a nightmare. I would definitely go MailChimp. It's free for 2,000 people, and their automation's really catching up. We might be making a shift, but anyway, digression.
It's a great tool, and I know a lot of musicians use MailChimp because it's a very friendly design as well.
Yeah. I should have said that. We use ActiveCampaign, but
great.
Definitely, it's an undertaking. It would be write lots of books. Right on the shorter end, about 20,000 words, keep it going. I would spend any money that I had outsourcing things that I wasn't good at, like cover design and editing. But yeah, the key to everything is building a really useful mailing list, because there's this, I know you probably want to get off, but there's this sort of perception that, well, I've published my book, it's Amazon's job to sell that for me. And I see that quite a lot whenever I talk at Amazon Academy and I do like the Reedy stuff and then the book fair, and it's like, why isn't Amazon selling my book? I'm like, well, they're a marketplace, they're just a store. You have to get people to go to that store and buy it. That's your job. Amazon is astonishingly good at picking up on what's selling and promoting it. You need to kind of put that snowball at the top of the mountain. And if you can send people to your book and get, if you're in a sort of fairly non-competitive niche, then, the difference between 10 sales in a day could definitely put you in the top 100, maybe even the top 10 in your niche. You might not get to the top, one on Amazon, but, you get that bestseller thing. Amazon sells what sells. It's just for them that, that's selling, let's promote that to more people. So your job is to sow that seed, get people to Amazon, get that book promoted, and then Amazon kind of at that point takes over the baton and they keep selling it, because it's just this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy cycle.
And if people want to connect with you, to learn more about you, I know you have the publishing services business now as well. Where's the best place for them to go and do that?
It's self-published.co.uk, or self-published.co.uk if you're American. So that's where we're doing all sorts of stuff. We're helping connect people with book covers. We're providing editing services. We're helping people market. We're doing all that kind of thing. So really, that would be the best way to get in touch. If you're interested in the guitar books, that's fundamental-changes.com. And if you really want to see what we're doing, just search Joseph Alexander Guitar on Amazon, and you'll be smashed in the face by about 100 books.
Well, Joseph, congratulations on how your business is built. It's great watching it, and I really enjoyed us working together, and hopefully we're going to do some other projects together in the future as well. And I wish you all the best with this upcoming book that may even be out now, depending on when someone watches this. So thanks so much for coming on, Joseph.
Thanks so much. It's always really flattering to be asked to do things like this. It's always mind-boggling that people are interested in what I have to say, but I'm always happy to do it. So thanks for having me on.
If you're interested in living a more creative life, then I'd love to invite you to join me as I share some of the most successful strategies and techniques that high-performing creatives use. I put them all together in a free downloadable ebook that you can get by going to jamestaylor.me. That's jamestaylor.me to get your free downloadable ebook on creativity.